Making money with your podcast is one of the biggest questions that I get asked as someone working in podcasting every single day. It is on the minds of every single podcaster, from Joe Rogan, of course, down to the podcaster that is just starting their very first show. So today, here on the Podcast Accelerator, I'm about to introduce you to 15 ways that you can make money with your podcast. Actually, this is the beginning of almost a 6-week series on podcast monetization. It's a collection of episodes that I've been working very hard with Rachel, our marketing coordinator at Captivate.fm on, and it's based upon our ultimate guide to podcast monetization, which is available at Captivate.fm/money. Captivate.fm/money. Please go and check that blog post out because it goes into some serious depth. I'm your host of the Podcast Accelerator, Mr. Mark Asquith, and of course, this is the Podcast Accelerator podcast, bringing you thrice weekly news, industry insights, and of course, education into podcasting. And for the very first time, this podcast is available as an actual video, not a repurposed video, not a static image with a waveform and my audio. No, as an actual video over on YouTube. It's one more way that you can enjoy the Podcast Accelerator. It is, of course, available in your podcast app of choice, in any podcast app in the world, but perhaps you're listening on desktop and you want to check it out on YouTube. You can now do that over at youtube.com/rebelbasemedia. And if you're watching this on YouTube for the very, very first time, welcome to the channel. There's a lot of information here about how to start, grow, and make money, of course, from your own podcast. So we're going to dive into the content in just 1 second. But before I do that, a quick shout out, of course, to the team here at Rebel Base Media that makes Captivate.fm the world's only growth-oriented podcast host. Check it out completely free for 7 days and start to make money and generate a bigger audience through your podcast hosting platform. Like I said, that's Captivate.fm. And also, a big shout out to the team at Aweber, who continue to help me to build my own audience through quality email marketing. You should really be checking Aweber out for all your email marketing needs. As a podcaster, you need to be building your email list. So please go and check Aweber out at markasquith.com/Aweber. So let's dig into this. There are 15 ways that we've put together that you can start to make money with your podcast. Now, this episode is going to be a bit of an overview session. And then over the next 5 to 6 weeks, I'm going to dig specifically into each one of these, plus give my opinions and some potential pitfalls and some potential benefits, pros and cons of every single one of these, all right? So there's a heck of a lot of amazing content coming your way here on the Podcast Accelerator. So go and check out Captivate.fm/money, all right? Get the blog post up while you're listening to this. Very quickly, I believe that podcasting it's beginning to really start to become mainstream. You know, we've seen it with so many brands getting into the space. Obviously, recently, I'm recording this in June 2020. We've just coming through the COVID-19 initial pandemic. And of course, podcasting has seen a bit of a boom there. We've just seen Joe Rogan kind of become licensed to Spotify for reportedly 100 to 150 million bucks over a few years period. And making money is on the minds of every single podcaster, but there's not just one way to do that. And I actually think that as a podcaster, you're in a really strong position right now because you don't have to always go for the CPM, cost per 1,000 downloads style sponsorships. And don't worry, we're going to talk about what that means in one of the next episodes. But I don't believe we have to use the traditional model of sponsorships anymore, okay? Yes, they still exist and they will always exist. But I think as maybe independent podcasters, we have got a little bit more opportunity. So here is a quick overview rundown of every one of the ways that I can see that you can make money podcasting. So number one, we have got, of course, affiliate marketing, where you basically promote external products in return for a share of the revenue. Captivate.fm has an affiliate program. We work with amazing affiliates and we send some serious revenue to many of our affiliates. So you can start making money through an affiliate program with Captivate and many other places out there. 99 Designs does it. Fiverr does it. Aweber does it, of course. There are so many places that you can work with on this. Loot Crate does it. Whatever your niche, all right, you will be able to make money through affiliate marketing, which is quite a nice way of doing it because it is fairly passive. Then you've got sponsors and advertising. And we're going to talk a little bit more in some depth on this over the next few weeks about things like fixed price sponsorship versus CPM, so the old kind of broadcast style advertising, but sponsors and advertising, whereby you essentially put sponsorships and put adverts inside your podcast, either read by you or dynamically inserted by a hosting platform like Captivate, okay? So sponsorships and advertising is number 2. Number 3, you can choose to go mass market with your podcast and really start to appeal to a mass of different people that will open up other opportunities for you. So partnerships and collaborations, you can then, of course, start to charge a little bit for those. Number 4 is you can start to go niche, where you start to, this is a monetization decision that you make, this mass market versus this niche opportunity, where if you go hyper niche, you can charge more for exposure. So cross-promoting across maybe some of your other channels, of course, email marketing, maybe through your social media profiles and your presence, maybe through your YouTube channel. But ultimately, if you go niche, you have the opportunity to go a little bit broader with the channels that you include inside sponsorships and advertising and partnership deals. You can also, of course, option number 5, you can offer courses, paid for courses that I know many in the entrepreneurial podcasting space do that. They will use their podcast as a bit of the, excuse the marketing jargon, but a bit of a top of the funnel style piece of content that gets people engaged with them enough that they then move through eventually to start to buy things from them. And of course, one of those things being courses. The next thing on the back of courses is services. Maybe you're a consultant. Maybe you are someone that can provide a design service or a technical service or some other service that someone else would need to buy. And again, this is back to using podcasting as a top of the funnel kind of scenario where you let the podcast educate people on why you're so bloody good at what you do. And then, of course, it becomes something that they buy from you. Services are things that they buy. But obviously, that's a little bit more of a consultancy style setup, which leads me on to the next thing, which is, of course, option 7, is, of course, coaching. Now, we see a lot of people that are just getting started in the entrepreneurial space. Maybe they're moving from having a service business like an accountant or like an insurance broker or a design agency or a digital agency. They move into coaching. It's how I kind of got started in podcasting years and years ago. I monetized my podcast very quickly using coaching because I was running a digital agency, and I was then able, of course, to go ahead and just sell coaching on a one-to-many basis, which is a wonderful, wonderful way to start monetizing the podcast. And you can do that quite early because some coaching can, of course, be quite high ticket. Next up, you have things like crowdfunding and donations. Now, we're going to dig into this, obviously, far, far more on the show. But there are a few kind of facets to this one. So crowdfunding and donations. Things like what Evo Terra does, where you can buy Evo a cup of coffee if you like his show. Like, then no one's expecting anything from Evo extra because they've bought him a coffee. They just want to say, look, there's $5, go and get a coffee on me. It's a great way to leverage that audience. But in particular, it's a great way to not have to give anything back in terms of extra content, premium content, which we'll get onto in a second, because this is just people that really like what you do, giving you something in return. It's not a great mass of money, but if you've got 1,000 people giving you $2 a month, $3 a month, or just a one-off donation to buy a coffee, you are monetizing your podcast, and you can easily start to cover your costs with this, all right? The next thing that you can do, option number 9, is, of course, you can start to sell premium content. And we do this over with our Spark of Rebellion podcast. When we hit a specific threshold over on Patreon, where listeners will donate some money every single month to support the show, we will then release premium content, all right? And what that means is that it's only for the paying people. There are a few ways to cut this up. It doesn't have to be done via Patreon. You could provide premium content on your website via membership. It doesn't have to be when you hit a certain threshold. It doesn't even need to be podcast content. You could access behind the scenes video content if you pay a certain amount either per month or as a one-off. So there's so many different ways that you can cut this, but premium content is a great thing to do, as is option number 10, which is, of course, featured content, where you feature external content on a paid-for basis, all right? This can be where people sponsor a blog post or sponsor a podcast episode, and you feature their content. You can also monetize using 2 other options: events, running your own events and meetups that are paid for, and of course, merchandise, badass t-shirts, badass stickers that you can use to really start to get some audience participation and some buy-in to your brand. That works really, really well. We do that at Rebel Base Media. In fact, I'm wearing a Rebel Base Media t-shirt now under my hoodie. And it works really well. People love really cool merchandise. And of course, you can extend that out to the next option, number 13, which is books. You can create a book for your podcast, all right? And you can then use that, similar to what Amy Woods did for her Content 10X podcast. You can, of course, use that to not only build your audience, but to provide extra content. And you can, make a book that you can sell. It's perfect, all right? It works really nicely. And then the two final ways that you can do this are paid for product reviews or service reviews, where someone will come to you and they will say, look, Mark, you've got a good audience that we think would benefit from our product. Do you want to give it a whirl? Like, here's a month of our product, or here's our Zoom Live Track L8. Do you want to review it? Or our Rodecaster Pro, or our Rode Procaster microphone. Do you want to review it? And, we'll give you a couple $100 to do that. People do that, all right? It works very, very well, and that's a very common thing to do. And then the last thing, of course, this is something that I do. If you are viewing this on YouTube, you might see in the background all of the lanyards that I've got from the events. Because one thing that I believe in that you can do to monetize your podcast very easily is take that speaking experience that you've got as a podcaster and turn it into a public speaking career. This is something that I've done for a few years now. It's not a focus of mine, but I do get paid for public speaking gigs. It's a great way and it's great fun. And you build network connections, and guess what? You get to travel the world. So public speaking is a wonderful way to monetize your podcast audience as well. All right. Now, I zipped through those 15 ways. This is an overview episode, all right? We are going to spend a lot of time over the next 5 to 6 weeks deep diving into every one of these. Plus, I'm going to give my pitfalls, my ups, my downs, and my ideas around these in particular when it comes down to their individual episodes. So look out for those. Number one, of course, in your podcast app of choice, the Podcast Accelerator will be available. And of course, on youtube.com/rebelbasemedia, Media, if you're viewing that for the very first time on YouTube, the podcast is available there now as well. So until the next time, thank you so much for joining me. I hope to see you on our free weekly podcast coaching. We don't need an email address to get you involved in that. It's over on Facebook. Just go to rebelbasemedia.io/free coaching. That's rebelbasemedia.io/free coaching. That will take you to our Facebook group, and you can just join that group, and we do free podcast coaching every single week at 11 a.m. Eastern. All right, so I'll see you there. And until the next time, never ever forget, the more you expect from yourself, the more you will excel.